Hello and welcome back. This is one of the most requested videos ever since I started a YouTube channel. So without further ado,
just do that. Start from there.
Yeah, can you go a little bit farther?
Yep.
Okay, there you go. We're here to talk about some backhand form. So starting out with your form, the most important thing is going to be your grip. There are a few different techniques, however the power grip is the most used. This is where you get your hand on top of the flight plate and not under. A lot of times I see people kind of coming under this way. You want to get your hand on top of the disc, and that's going to be your most powerful grip. The last point of release should be your index finger, and if you have a grip lock, that's because it tends to be where your disc will come out of your wrong finger. So when you're releasing a disc, the last point of contact is going to be here. So if you imagine the disc kind of ripping out of your hand, this is what's going to happen. If you have a grip lock, it's actually coming off of one of these fingers, and that's why it's catching, and you're going to hold on to it a little longer. Staying linear is key. Think of your reach back and your follow through being on a straight line the whole way. So if you put a stick down or use the edge of the T-pad, for example, your reach back should be straight, and all the way through to your follow through should also be straight. Now, speaking of lines, from the side view, your pull through should be on the same line unless you're trying to throw something other than flat, like a spike hyzer or a roller. What I mean by that is I talked about this line, but I'm also talking about this line where you're not looking from back to straight, but you're looking at me on this horizontal plane. And so what I mean by a spike hyzer is you come down and you come up. On an anhyzer, you're kind of more on a roller. You're coming up to down. Starting out, you want to keep everything super flat all the way around. So a straight line from back to front and a straight line on a horizontal plane. This just helps you keep everything super consistent so that you have the most consistent release, and especially when you're practicing, you want to keep being really repetitive. When you're reaching back, you want to think about dancing around the disc when you're trying to throw consistently. Throwing on a very small hyzer is actually very favorable due to the fact that throwing flat is super difficult to do consistently. Dancing around the disc means leaving the disc here, and you're going to step around and then throw. What a lot of people actually do is take the word reach back too seriously, and they're actually going to reach back and they end up rounding instead of staying on the straight line. And so that's where I'm saying dance around the disc rather than thinking of the term reach back. So you want to keep it here. Paul Macbeth does this really well, where he just kind of moves around the disc and we'll pull it straight through. Now when I'm saying throw on a small hyzer, I don't mean, a big hyzer like this, just the baby hyzer, because it's going to help you keep the release consistent. Flat gets a little hairy because just the smallest minute difference changes the throw drastically. Some discs are super sensitive to the slight angle difference and are easier to manipulate from the hyzer angle. So from your reach back to your follow through, keep your wrist flat and locked in, and the wrist should never be adjusted once your throw has begun. Don't let go of the disc, because when it's executed correctly, the disc should come out on the same line that it was pulled through on. The timing is key and takes a lot of practice, and all the power should come from the ground up. The legs and the hips generate power and translate to the upper body just before the body turns to throw, and that's technically called your power pocket. So here, when you're throwing standstill, it's a good example, is your weight shift goes from your left leg to your right leg. I'm all talking right hand, backhand. So when you're throwing standstill, your weight's back here, all on my left leg, and then when I go to pull through, I'm elbowing the door. So here, my weight's also transferring, my hips are coming through, and all of the weight comes through. And right here's where I'm saying, don't let your wrist break and don't let the disc go. So what I mean by wrist break, some people, watch my wrist, the flat wrist is what should be happening. Some people will come through like this. So they'll kind of pull the disc through, and at this point, you don't have anywhere else for your wrist to go because you've already broken your wrist and the disc is kind of wanting to fling out of your hand. What you want to do is keep your wrist locked in And the whole way through, the only thing that's hinging is your elbow. You don't need to flick your wrists or anything like that. You want to keep it tight. And so everything is going to stay super locked in. And right here, when I'm saying don't let go of your disc, some people think that they need to kind of flail it out of their hands. That's not necessary. Keep it all straight, locked in, and the power that you're generating from the ground up is going to launch the disc out of your hand, and it's just gonna rip out of your hand. That's where some people, when you hear that, like, oh, you heard the snap when it comes out of your hand. That's why, because it's ripping out of your hand and you're creating that little snap. So I know I just gave you a whole bunch of information, but like I said, the way that I personally practiced learning my form was to record yourself from behind the T-pad and record yourself from the left side of the T-pad if you're right-handed. If you're left-handed, go to the other side of the T-pad. But when you record yourself, you can kind of scrub through the video on your phone and slow it down a little bit so you can see all the little things that I'm talking about. If your wrist is broken, or if you're actually rounding, or all these little things, they make a huge difference. So record yourself, watch yourself, and if you guys have any questions, please put them down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.